Hello, ladies. So nice to see you. I am so glad for you to join us today on Friday. Hello from the Central Valley. Yes. Oh my gosh. I'm in Berkeley, California, and my parents have already been evacuated from the North Bay. Things are super real. The dogs need to go for a walk. But walking in the hills and sucking in all that smoke is not in the cards for us today. So hello, Malini. Love to see you from India. Hey, so nice to see you. Love to see it. Hello, Lisa. Excellent. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and get started, and folks can jump in wherever they jump in. So my name is Bondi, and I'm here to talk to you about asking like an auctioneer. And we're going to be using, actually, let me go back just for a second. For logistics, I'm going to be launching a poll in a little while. I'll also be using not the Q&A function, but instead we'll be using the chat function. If I ask for any feedback or give you a prompt, that's the place that I'll have you put your answers until we do an open Q&A at the end. Also, as we go through today, feel free to pop questions or comments into the chat. I'm going to do my best to stay on track with the story I prepared for you today and the content I prepared for you today, but I will be, because I'm a mom, I'm a multitasking boss. I will also be in and out of the chat as much as possible to grab any comments or questions that you have that come up in there. So welcome to this 1-hour session we're calling Ask Like an Auctioneer. And I want to start with an idea that I really love, that is close to my heart, that is a meme that you may have seen around in the internet. It's something that I hold with me as I pursue my own dreams and sometimes run up against something that maybe could tempt me to want to shrink a little bit, to twist myself into a pretzel to make my dreams fit other people's expectations. And so when I do that, I rely on what I'm about to share with you as a thing to lean on that creates spaciousness and grace for myself. And I hope it's useful for you if you have not seen it before. And it goes like this. It goes, you will be too much for some people. Those are not your people. Yes, you will be too much for some people. Those are not, thank you, Lisa, for the thumbs up on that. That's right. Those are not your people. So I just love to share this as a context for the stuff we're going to be talking about today. And just very quickly, I'm going to drop a poll into our small group here today. And here's my question for you. If you had to pick one of these three and finish, or one of these four and finish this question, which is, this is the year for what? More money, more authority, more influence, or more balance for you? I'm going to go ahead and continue this. Go ahead and just pop into the poll and answer this question if you can. If this year was the year for one of these four, which would it be? More money, more authority, more influence, or more balance for you? And balance could mean about how much time you spend at work. It could be about where a different balance of where you put your attention in your career or the creative projects you're working on. Yes, more money and more influence. I love both of these answers. Now, I'll say that since launching Project Ask Like an Auctioneer, which are the core ideas I'm sharing with you today, these four areas tend to be the four areas where I notice women always need to and want to ask for more of in order to reach their goals. Sometimes it's all four, sometimes they're related, and sometimes it's a singular focus on one that if they had more of it, it would bring them closer to their goals. So I'm gonna, we've got 33% of you are saying more money, and 67% of you are saying more influence. And obviously those are very related. So I'm gonna share the results here. I'm going to stop sharing and move on, close this poll. So excellent. Thank you for that. So my goal with Project Ask Like an Auctioneer and everything surrounding it is to help 1 million women ask for more and get it. And more importantly, simply see asking as a success strategy in their careers and businesses and against their dreams so that we can reach our goals faster. And my hope is that you get one idea today that gives you the courage and maybe the confidence you need to ask for more when you go to make the asks that matter to you. And when I think about asks, I don't just think about those sort of really obvious ordained moments of, salary negotiations or contract negotiations for projects you might be working on if you're a solopreneur or an entrepreneur, but instead to think about what are all of the opportunities to use asking and leverage asking to get us closer to our goals. So here's our little journey today. First, I'm going to talk to you about how to ask like an auctioneer and what the heck that means. 2, to talk about 3 steps to finding the asks. I have a lot of women in my workshops and in my talks who say, I love this idea, but I don't have anything to ask for right now. And I'm going to challenge that. And then we're going to do how to set up your asks to help you win, because that's also one of the core questions that I get from women all the time. So let's talk about how to ask like an auctioneer. So let me move my images around here. I'm managing a lot here. So who am I? So my name is Bondi. I'm a longtime leadership communications coach. For the last 20 years, I have delivered workshops, talks, and really importantly, one-on-one coaching to senior leaders who have to find the courage to speak from the heart so they can align their people, teams, and cultures towards shared goals, to make decisions that may look small but are very important to their businesses. In some cases, in fact, billion-dollar decisions. I was the speaker coach for 2 Olympic bids, for the bid for Rio de Janeiro's games and also for Turkey's games, which we would be in the middle of right now had we won that bid, but we did not. And during that time, I have done thousands of one-on-one coaching sessions where I am working on helping a leader tell a compelling story in front of the room. And a handful of years ago, I took a little bit of a working sabbatical, you could call it. And during that time, I was reminded by my husband about a funny hobby that I had said years ago that I would pick up, and that was auctioneering. And so he reminded me that, like, during your sabbatical, maybe it's the time to do that thing. So I packed my bags and I went to St. Louis, and me and 100 cowboys on the side of Route 66 spent 10 days learning how to auctioneer. And when I was finished with that, I thought, what am I going to do with this? It's not my career. And so now in the Bay Area, I do fundraising auctioneering for women-led nonprofits and nonprofits that benefit women and girls. Next month, I'll be the auctioneer for our chapter here for Dress for Success, a nonprofit benefiting women, outfitting women with career skills and workwear for their get back to work strategies in their careers. And these 2 worlds unexpectedly crashed together for me a few years ago. See, every time I work with a client, they come to me and say, okay, hey, in my communications work, they'll say, hey, Dia, I've got 12 minutes on stage. I've got a half an hour in the boardroom. I'm going to go talk to investors, whatever the high stakes communications moment is. And I need to put together a pitch, a strategy conversation, some kind of story that's compelling so that I can win, so I can get the decisions that I need to move my strategies, my team, my business forward. And all the time, every time, I can't start helping them architect that story until I ask this question, which is, great, I love that. And what are you asking for? What in business, we call it a CTA. What is your call to action for your audience? And not just what, my mouse is very sensitive. Not just what, but how much. If you're asking for headcount, how many? If you're asking for budget, how much? If you're asking for a salary increase, how much? If you're asking for an opportunity to lead a project, how big is that project? If you're looking for more exposure, to whom and in what size audiences? And when I ask this question, how much, what I don't get is an answer, but what I do get is a lot of hand wringing. Well, let me think about it. I could ask for really this project or initiative or thing I'm trying to do needs 25 clients, or it needs, it needs 10 headcount, but actually there's no way they're going to go for 10. So maybe if I ask for 8 or 6, then I could borrow from the engineering team over here, 2 people part-time, and maybe I can get some contractor budget and piece it together and end up with something that kind of looks like the 14 heads I actually need. But they'll never go for that either. How would I possibly get budget like that? And pretty soon we start talking ourselves out of what we actually need. And I end up hearing this question back at me, which is, Dia, what do you think I can get? And for 20 years, I've been co-conspiring with my clients. Yeah, good question. What do you think you can get? what we do is we shape our asks in order to get a yes. And sometimes we end up crippling ourselves by doing that. See, here's how I think about it. On the horizontal axis, you have some amount of courage that you need, and on the vertical axis, to make some volume of an ask. These are the two. I imagine that, like, if I'm going to make an ask that's somewhere around here, I'm going to need about this much courage to do it. And it's going to land me somewhere right here. And in this case, I can muster enough courage to make this kind of ask. This kind of ask feels like, good enough. This is the kind of ask that I'm pretty sure I'm going to get a yes to. And so I'm willing, and I can muster that amount of courage. Because I don't know, 89, 92, 98% sure I'm going to get a yes. And we love this because a yes feels good. A yes says you're on the right track. A yes says keep going. A yes says all the things that we need to hear so often. But why don't we go above that guaranteed yes? Why don't we threaten a no just a little bit? Because there are all kinds of increments above that almost guaranteed yes, that where the possibility really of getting more lives. And the reason we don't do this in the 6,500 coaching sessions I've done over my career is because every ask above something that is pretty much guaranteed lives in a place I call the zone of freaking out. It's the place where you start to think, oh my God, I could never ask for that. I could ask for 6 heads, but I couldn't ask for 12. That's so ridiculous, not even inside of our budget. Even though it's actually what I need to be successful. All of the asks above our guaranteed yes live in the zone of freaking out. But the zone of freaking out is also actually where all the potential of every ask truly lives. And if we're able to muster enough courage to extend our ask into and to the outer zones of the zone of freaking out, we might actually confront a no. Yep. No's exist. They are out there somewhere. But if we're willing to touch it and then negotiate down a little bit, we may end up at a yes that is not as big as the no, but higher than the guaranteed yes we would have gone for if we had just asked ourselves, what do you think I can get? And I'm going to go for that. And this is exactly what we do when we ask like an auctioneer. Now, we ask in order to get a no, because a no tells us very quickly that, we just maximize the potential of that ask, and we're always going to not sell it for the thing that got a no, but we're going to sell it for a click right beneath, which might be similar to how you approach the asks that you'll make in your businesses, in your creative projects you're working with collaborators, in your business, in your entrepreneurial journeys, and in your jobs. So I have a little demo here. Would you like to see this play out? Please tell me in the chat. Would you like to see this play out? You're going to want to see this play out. Yeah, I'm sure. Right here, I'm going to show you what this looks like. This is an auction that I did for an organization in Berkeley here called Kala Art Institute. They're completely awesome, long-time art institute here. We do a live auction every year, along with a silent auction of 125 art pieces on the walls. And then we take the top and most important and sort of most compelling pieces, usually between like 9 and 11 pieces, and we do a live auction. So what you're gonna watch here is, let me go back. What you're gonna watch here is I think it was like second to last item in our live auction. This piece actually sold at this auction, and I was flying to Australia the couple of months later, and I went to the San Francisco International Airport, and right in the international terminal where we were going to be boarding, the same piece had been blown up into like a mega side, like 20 by 30 feet, enormous, in the airport. I was so surprised to go like, hey, I sold that item, a version of that one, only a couple of months ago. So here's what I want you to be listening for. I want you to be listening for, what am I asking for? What did I sell it for? And more importantly, what's going on in the room? Now, I will give you a warning that, like, look, I'm not a great auctioneer, okay? I am what you'd think of as a good enough auctioneer, because this is not an easy thing to do. So here we go. I'm going to play it. 42, jump into 46, 42, 46, 42, 46, 46, 45. Are you in at 45, sir? 42, 45, looking for 46, 46, looking for 47, 46, looking for 47 here. She's in at 46, looking $4,700 here. 47, looking for 48, 47, just looking for $4,800, 48, looking for 4,900, 49, looking for 5,000, 49, looking for 5,000. He's in at 49, he's got it at 49, looking for $5,000 here. 49, looking for 5,000. He's in right now at $4,900. Are you in at 5? 5, looking for 51. 5, looking for 51. 5, are you in at $5,100 here? She's got it at 5,000. Looking for 51. She's got it at $5,000. Looking for $5,100. Yes, who is she? Go ahead and look. $5,000. $5,100. Are you out, sir? $5,000. All in right now. Sold. $5,000. You've got it. Okay. You're bitter. In the chat, tell me, what did I ask for? What was the biggest number I asked for? Somebody in the chat, tell me, what did I ask for? Yes. What did I sell it for? Yes. No, I sold it for 5,000. That's right. That's right. I sold it for 5,000. Now, if I had said looking for 42,000, looking for 4,200, and somebody raised their hand and said I'm in, and I sold it right then, I would have left money and opportunity on the table for that organization. So we are always, I am always as an auctioneer looking for the no. Now, for you in your careers and businesses, you are not in a competitive bidding situation. I mean, sometimes it happens that you might be going, maybe 2 clients are bidding for your time, maybe 2 employers are bidding for your talent, but mostly we're not in a competitive bidding situation in rapid fire. But this is a metaphor for the way we can walk into the asks that we give. So what you'll have to do is actually actively step into your zone of freaking out and make the kinds of asks that you think might threaten a no. So, oops, let me stop. 42, here. Jump into 46, 42, 46. So how 42. Do we do that? We have to empower your ask so that the asks that you make actually can live in the zone of freaking out, or what I think of as the zone of potential, and not just stay in the place where you know you're going to get a guaranteed yes. Now, I recognize that every single, thank you, Lisa, for acknowledging my auctioneering style. I don't even know if it's a style. It's mostly me just going, please don't let me lose my numbers. Please let me keep track of what's going on in this room right now. So my style kind of falls out of that. So you're not every single ask that you make in your career or in your business is going to be a Zofo version ask, but there are moments that are high stakes where we need to ask ourselves, are we leaving money and opportunity to get more money, visibility, authority, and balance that we need in order to reach our goals. So how do we empower the ask? I'm going to share with you some of the key ideas that I use standing on stage where I am in my zone of freaking out constantly up there, because I've got to say, do I ask one more time or not? Do I go one more time or do I not? All the time as we go through both competitive bidding, but also I often make just a direct pledge ask as well. So how can anyone say no to me? Let me be clear. My kids have figured out how to say no to me on a regular basis. Do the dishes. No. Yes. Do the dishes. And then they finally do. I guess I use a little bit of like asking in my own Zofo, all the time with my kiddos. So what it takes, I'm going to share 5 of the 9 ideas that I've drawn on since I started auctioneering to empower the asks that women that who come across my workshops and in my keynotes, like you are right now, to make the kinds of asks that matter, and also to embolden and empower my own asks. I mean, I am a professional speaker and coach, and I every day, I don't negotiate a salary once every other year with incremental, increases. My whole life is dedicated to figuring out what number to put on a proposal I send out there. So I eat my own dog food on this stuff, let me tell you. So here's the first idea. The first idea is that people are irrational. Stop deciding what people will say yes or no to. You have no idea. I have learned this so concretely since I've been standing on stage in these rapid fire negotiations. I don't know what somebody will say yes or no to. And so often we pre-decide what someone will say yes or no to, and that dictates what we'll ask for. and who will ask it of. And if you don't like the idea of people are irrational, I'll tell you what, I posted this on social and dudes don't like this idea, but it is something that shows up a lot in real life. Like I see it play out. Now, if you don't like this one, here's another offer, which is that your rationale for what somebody will say yes or no to is not their rationale for what somebody will say yes or no to. So stop deciding for them and find out what they'll say yes or no to. Here's a funny example. 55 is a powerful number. You know why? Because last year, I did an auction for Kala Art Institute and also for a large parks conservancy here in the Bay Area. At the Parks Conservancy event, I sold a one-night camping trip for 12 people. Granted, it was a luxury camping trip for $55,000, 2 times back-to-back at the same event. At Kala Art Institute, I sold a piece of art that had a street value of $10,000 for $4,500. So who's to say what something is worth? We don't know what people will or won't pay for something. And when I say pay, money is a metaphor because you will be asking for people's attention, people's endorsements, connections, access to networks, access to stages. There are a million other asks that are non-financial, but money is a great metaphor for thinking about what, quantifying your ask. So I thought people were going to be spending maybe 20 grand on that camping trip because it was, it was a moneyed room and it was a coveted location for this camping trip. But 55, that took me and all of the organizers completely by surprise. When we were done, we were like, who would have thunk? But my job wasn't to decide or put a price that was fixed. My job was to ask and find out. So number 2. So when I use that idea, people are rational, Dia, I don't know what they'll say yes or no to. So I'm going to step into my Zofo on this one and see what happens. And when I touch a no, I'm like, yes, I did a great job. And then I can back off and find the place that negotiates a perfect equilibrium between what somebody will say yes to and what I'll say yes to as a counteroffer. So 2, the second most important thing to finding the courage to get into your Zofo is to know your reserve. What is the level of engagement, the level of participation, whatever the thing is, even if it's non-moneyed, that is the reserve that you'll hold, the thing at which they can't touch this. Okay. Also, this is a great poster from my good friend who owns Paper Jam Press. You can go online and find this. She has all kinds of amazing pop culture phrases that she prints at Paper Jam Press by hand. So you've got to know your reserve. And if you know that, you're going to walk into any ask so much more courageous because you know where you stand for yourself and you can do it on your own terms. So the question I get sometimes from women is like, okay, great. I know my reserve. My reserve is, 3 weeks vacation, 100% of my healthcare covered and this level of salary minimum. Okay. I know my reserve, but what if I get a no even to that? And my answer is what do I do if I get a no? My answer to you all the time is great friggin' question. What are you going to do? And if you have the answer to that question, that ask that you make is not going to be a cul-de-sac for your dreams. It is not gonna be the end of everything. I talk to women all the time, they're going into renegotiating their role or their salary at their organization. And they're like, what if I get a no? I'm like, yeah, what if you get a no? Are you ready to leave? How long are you going to stay longer? And if we work that out, they're like, oh, got it. And their ask's going to be so much more empowered. So this is a great question that only you can answer. Third idea. And that is this idea that we work, this is less about the Zofo and more about how to accelerate the answers because you have plans, you have dreams, you need to move on, right? And that sometimes when we go to make the asks that matter to us, we can get breadcrumbed by our audiences. You know what I mean by breadcrumbed, where they're like, we'll get right back to you and they don't, or they stall the decision, or they're not really clear on their answer. And pretty soon months have gone by and you don't have the answer you need to continue to move forward. In auctioneering, we use this trick, which is, are you in or you out? You heard me in that demonstration. I had to say, are you in or you out, sir? Because I got another 160 people here and 2 more pieces of art I got to sell. Let's go. And I was able to put a little friendly, empathetic, with gratitude, but clarity and standing up for what I needed, my responsibility to the room was. And in your case, your responsibility to your dreams and goals are to help accelerate a decision so you know where you stand. So are you in or you're out is a very powerful question, and you can test this. I don't know if you're in quarantine where you are dialing in from. We are here, so I haven't been to a coffee shop in a long time. But next time you go to a coffee shop and you get your to-go container and you wander over to the milk and sugar stand, if somebody's taking too long with the milk and sugar, you can just lean over and say, hey, are you in or you out with the milk and sugar there? Because, I got, and see what happens. You're going to do it with empathy in a friendly way, but we get to ask for people to make a decision. I gave this workshop at Pandora's Women in Tech conference, and the head of engineering there is an amazing woman for advocate for women of color in technology. And she emailed me a week after she did, she was in my audience, and she said, hey, Dee, I used the interview out technique. And I said, how'd you do it? She said, well, I had stood up a project team and they were kind of like waffling, like weeks had gone by, and like, they kept saying, they kept sort of like, oh, rescheduling. They were just like not moving fast enough. So she gathered everyone in the room and she said, all of you guys opted into this project. You said you were on board. You knew the timeline. Are you in or are you out? And boy, everybody in the room stood up a little taller and said, we're in. So you can use this in a non-financial negotiation, obviously. So it helps to clarify I know where I stand, where do you stand? And can avoid the problem of getting breadcrumbed to death. Fourth idea. This one sometimes is a little bit controversial, so we'll see how this goes. So price is a measure of value, not your worth. So when I work with clients, when I work with clients in auctioneering, they'll say, Dia, we really want this lot meaning the thing we're going to sell. We really want it to sell for, I don't know, $25,000. And all I can say is, I'm going to sell it for whatever someone else values it at, as long as it's above my reserve. It's not always an indication of exactly what the worth is. Remember the camping trip? Was it really worth $50,000? Well, the person who bought it valued it at that. All of the intrinsic value inside of the camping experience. They were supporting the organization. They were going to a coveted location. They get to be the hero and host all their friends. Like, I don't know what they value, but that price that came at me gave me an indication of what they value. That $10,000 worth piece of art that I sold for $4,500, that's what the room valued it at. And what am I going to do? Yell at the room and say, no, it's worth more. Give me more. If it's above my reserve, then they're just telling me what's valuable to them and how they value it. Now, this is important right now, I think, because in the world right now, we hear all this language about like, know your worth, get paid what you're worth. And yes, I want you to know your worth. I want you to get compensated for your time. I want you to have, champions in the world who value what you're doing and see your worth. I want that for you. But I find that sometimes that language can actually bind women up and make the stakes for the answer that they get so high that it actually is counterproductive. If I ask for X salary and I don't get it, maybe I'm not worth that. So what I want to do is uncouple our own sense of worth or worthiness for what somebody else values or sees value in. Now, it is our job to tell the story of the things that we're asking for, to set it up successfully. That's work we can do. But it's not, we have to not internalize the answers we get. So here's how I think about it. Since I've been auctioneering, is that what my audience will pay, and if it's a non-financial kind of ask, be on your board for your nonprofit, be an investor in your organization, become a client of yours, whatever. What they'll pay or do is a way to see what they value and how they value it, not the way to measure or define our own worthiness. I write proposals all the time, you guys, to people who say, no, thank you. It doesn't mean that I'm not worth the number I put on that proposal or the nature of the work I put on that proposal. It just means they don't value what I do the way I do it the same way I do, and I get to choose. So I hope this is helpful for you as you think about ways to frame your thinking to help you step into making bigger asks that let you touch a no and negotiate down so you maximize the potential of that ask. So yes, because you will be too much for some people, those may not be your people. So idea number 5, and this kind of comes from my communications work as well as my everything I've learned since I started auctioneering a few years ago, which is that purpose drives courage. When I work with a client in a really high stakes environment for my communications work, you know, they have a choice. Do they say what they need to say, or they say what they're supposed to say? And sometimes they're the same thing. And sometimes they need courage to actually say what needs to be said, okay, in front of the room, to ignite engagement, to get to enroll people in what they're doing, etc. And purpose, when we can attach to their purpose, that can be a pool and a source of courage to make the kinds of to tell the story that needs to be told on stage. This can be equally powerful for you as you think about going to make the asks that you need to make that can change everything for you in money, authority, influence, and balance. And we're going to get those by using something we borrow from the world of auctioneering, which is that we can be an agent. We can be an agent for our own purpose. You know, when I went to auctioneering school, I learned auctioneers are not, we are not the buyer and we are not the seller. We are the agent for both. And in my case, as a fundraising auctioneer for organizations that benefit women and girls, I think that my role is to actually be an agent for the purpose of that organization. And when I can be that, it makes it easier for me to ask just one more time in the room. Anyone in at $1,000 here? I'm looking for a direct pledge of $500. We've completed our direct pledges. We're going to go at $20 in the room. Let's see if we can get every paddle in the air to help me step into my own ZOFO, because I'm not attached to the number. I'm attached to the purpose, to the outcome that ask actually enables. You can be an agent for your purpose. And I'm going to give you an example of this. So a friend of mine was I'm here in the Bay Area. A friend of mine is she was what's the role? It is the chief of staff, excuse me, which is getting to be like a much more popular role to help C-level executives, you know, run their orgs. She, while she was chief of staff at a big technology company you're very familiar with, she launched a project as a nonprofit that that pairs world-class coaches at a low bono rate with young women leaders in this social impact space. Okay, because she understands the value of coaching, and these women apply, they get nominated as fellows in a cohort, and they get paired with coaches, world-class coaches all over the world to help them reach their goals. It's an amazing organization. She kind of started it as an impact hobby, like my auctioneering as an impact hobby, but it grew and grew and grew. And because all of the income around it is centered on, you know, a low bono kind of model, she needed, in order to make it sustainable, to think not just about like what can these women pay for the low bono coaching, but other ways to infuse the project with cash enough to make it sustainable. Year over year, it grew and grew as she was still chief of staff, and she wanted to leave and double down all of her efforts, time, and attention on this project that she had launched to make it sustainable. She needed to go out and look for sponsorships. She called me, Dia, I have a sponsor, my very first sponsorship conversation coming up. I'm going to go to this organization and I need help with my pitch. So what did we do? I said, okay, let's get on a call. We got on a call, and she asked me, I asked her, great, Jane, so you're going to go give this pitch. What are you asking for? And you know what she said? Dia, what do you think I can get? And I'm like, wrong question, Jane. The question is, what do you actually need to actually reach your goals? What do you need to make this organization sustainable? And the answer she gave me was $7,500 per sponsorship. And I was like, bullshit. That there's no possible way 75 is enough. She was like, all right, hang on a sec. It's actually 23,000. I was like, now we're on to something. But she said, I couldn't possibly ask for 23,000. Why? Because it was squarely in her ZOFO. She didn't know what they'd say. She thought they'd be like, get out of here, you crazy lady. No way. So she went and made the ask. Let me just be clear. She went and made the ask. And why she was able to do it is because we stopped and had a conversation about purpose. I said, you know, what's going on? You're kind of wringing your hands. You know the number. You have a great story. What's going on? She goes, no, Dia, in my years, she's managed vast communities, global communities, and has been a great advocate for people. You know, she said, I don't love going to ask for myself. Like I can ask for somebody else, but going to ask for myself feels really icky to me. It just feels like, I'm like, Jane, you're not actually going to go get a sponsorship for $23,000 so you can put a down payment on your next Lamborghini. Like, let's remind you of what you're doing. So we spent some time talking about the women that she's impacting with her program, talking about the purpose of her organization, talking about her vision for that organization and its impact, and talking about how that vision coming to life was reliant on her making the organization sustainable, and that she is not asking on behalf of Jane. She is asking on behalf of her purpose, you know, of building the organization she was needing to make sustainable. And with that, she went and made her ask. I called her a couple of weeks later, said, Jane, did you go make the ask? She said, I did. I said, how'd you do? She goes, well, I asked for 34,000. I went, what? She said, yeah, I asked for 34 grand. And I said, what'd they say? She said, they said no. I said, what about 30 grand? She said, no. I said, what about 24 grand? She said, they said no. I was like, okay, so what happened? She said, they said no to all of it. Is that a loss? Actually, it wasn't for her, because other things can happen when you ask. She realized in the middle of her conversation that she didn't have the right people in the room. Any ask that she was going to make, 5,000, 7,000, 23,000, 34,000, was challenging her audience around gathering their point of view and strategy around giving and partnerships. You know, it was a philanthropic social impact ask, and they didn't have their shit together. And so she realized, oh my God, Dia, they didn't say no because they didn't like it. They loved it, but it forced them to realize that they didn't have a strategy put together for this. They didn't have a rationale that they could take back and sell to their executive team. She said, what I learned is I got to do a better job of getting the right organizations who are aligned to my mission and ready to write a check. Now that is a lesson that will sustain her forever. So getting that no was actually an incredible, not just learning, but a strategic learning to help her be successful going on into the future. Okay. So I'm just really quickly curious if you can jump into the chat and let me know while I sit down. You can see I'm standing in my office here. Which of these 5 ideas is most like resonant for you? Just put the number in the chat. Which one do you think is 3? Yes, no, yes, great. In or you out? So good. Anybody else? Which one do you think is the most like, I could use that? That's interesting. 1 and 3, yeah, your rationale is not their rationale. I find that first one is like really powerful for me as a small business owner. That one really, really, really matters. 5, be an agent for your purpose. Yes, I love that, Susan. Thank you. That one is also, that one is useful for me when I have to go set up and ask with a conversation with folks who like don't get it, you know, and for me to focus not on like whether they like me or don't like me, but to really clarify the purpose that I'm there to speak to. Okay, excellent. Thank you for that, everybody. So the zone of freaking out, where am I now? So let's talk about 3 steps to finding an asks that matter. You might be thinking to yourself, all right, what the hell? So this sounds really fun. I want to try some of this stuff, but I don't have an ask in front of me. I'm not going into a big negotiation right now. I don't have a big thing. That's fine. So I just started hosting monthly Your Most Powerful Ask group strategy sessions. Anybody can drop into them. They're super affordable. And we kind of do what we're going to talk about right now, which is how do you think about using asking as a success strategy, and how do you discover an ask that you could make? You know, I've been in an accelerator, a women's business accelerator this last month, and women, you know, we're always asking each other for help. Like what are the asks where you need support? And a lot of us get stuck like, I don't know what to ask for. So that's what this is a little bit about. And here's a way you can unearth an ask that might be meaningful for you. This is a question I get. I love all these ideas, Dia, but like, how do I actually, like how? So there's 3 steps to it. Okay. Step number 1 is this. You can take a screenshot of this, grab it with your phone, like whatever. What is my goal? Last year, I was giving a workshop at a large tech company called Your Most Powerful Ask Live. It's a 2-hour workshop I deliver for like women's ERGs and in women's communities. And a woman raised her hand and she was like, me. And I was like, yes. She said, my goal is to keep learning and growing. And I'm going to say my favorite word again, which was bullshit. Learning and growing is an activity. It's not a goal. And so I said, that is bullshit. Tell me what you're actually after. And she kind of looked over her shoulder each side. And, we had a room full of her peers. And she was like, I want to be general counsel one day. And everyone in the room blew up. They were like, now we're on to something. Okay. That's not an activity. Like, that's a place you can arrive. So once she said out loud her goal, we could then identify the next step, which is, what's the next move you need to make that brings you closer to that goal? And we identified a few for her. One is she had to make her goals known. And she had to enroll a few leaders at her organization in that goal. People who knew about it and people who would be like, yes, I see where you're going. I will sponsor you. I will connect you with people. I will invite you into critical meetings to help you see what those senior level conversations feel like and look like. I will start briefing you on the protocols at that high level. I'll find chances to mentor you. Right? So she knew what her goal was, and her next big move was to make it known and then make asks that bring her closer to that big move, which she identified actually very specifically was to get to ask to participate as an observer in a very specific quarterly meeting that was high level. She could sit in the back, but she could start to understand how she might prepare for that as her future reality, to identify where her blind spots are, what her development plan might be for her to be able to perform really well at that table and in that meeting. She needed to find somebody who was willing to say, yes, you can come with me every quarter. So once we have those two, and I have mine right now, guess what mine is? I need to write a book. I need to write the book called Ask Like an Auctioneer. Let me know. I need to do that, right? I need to do that, right? Everybody give me a thumbs up. I definitely need to do that. And thank you. Thank you, Susan. I need to do that. And yes, write the fucking book. I want to so bad. And what I want my next big move in that is to find a literary agent who will take me on, because I actually have 3 books in me. It's this one and then the follow on and then something similar to that. So, and I'm going to try not to self-publish. I'm going to try to do it with an agent and with a publishing house, because I see this as a body of work that I need a team to help elevate, So my next big move is to get a literary agent. There's a few big moves, but that's one of them. So think to yourself right now, what's my big goal? And maybe what's my big move? And then the third step looks like this. What is the Zofo ask I can make to action that move? When I say Zofo ask, I mean the ask that doesn't pull punches, the ask that is in your zone of freaking out. I'll give you some examples for mine, okay? For mine, the ask is literally to go to it's pretty direct to my move, to actually ask somebody to be my literary agent. And the Zofo version of that is to not ask my cousin's friend who just graduated, with a master's of literature and is starting to build her book of business. It's to go to the literary agents that represent the other women authors, nonfiction authors that I respect. That feels scary and Zofo-ish. So I can think of other asks that are less Zofo-ish, but also similar, maybe I would, so that's one ask I could make, just directly, I have to get an agent, ask the agent. The other one could be asking somebody who feels like a heavy hitter in my network to introduce me to a literary agent that they know that they think is a really good connection for this. So I can leverage that endorsement. Maybe it's asking other women who have written other specific books. I did make one Zofo ask, is to ask a woman who's a big sponsor of this kind of work as context for the ask that I'll have to make for a literary agent to write me and get endorsed by her and permission from her communications folks at her large technology company. She's CIO of a tech company, to have a public statement in support of this initiative. You know, like that felt Zofo-ish to be like, hey, so I'm going to need some endorsements by like influencers like you. Could you maybe please? And she did. So excellent. So you can ask yourself, you can ask yourself, who Melina's saying, go to Reedsy and go to Mark Dawson. You won't regret it. You can send me an email to hello@diabondi.com and let me know who I should contact. That would be wonderful and fabulous. And my heart would explode if you did that in all the right ways. So this is the 3-step process. What's your goal? What's your move? And then what are the asks you could make that action that move? And then what's the Zofo version of those asks? So I would hope for you going forward, you can use this kind of framework to think about how might you unearth the invisible but strategic asks that help advance your goals and move you toward them. And it is all dependent on the way you make them meaningful is to have them be the Zofo version of everything all the time. So let's talk about our last step in our journey, which is to share with you a framework to set up your ask. You know that my goal is to publish a book. My big move is to find a literary agent. And one of my Zofo asks is to ask the person that is the scariest, most Zofo-ish person to either give me an endorsement, a connection, or to ask the most Zofo-ish version of the literary agent, pitch myself to the most Zofo-ish version of a literary agent I can think of. Well, by the way, I have a list of 25. I need to round it out with 5 more. I got to get to 30 before I start pitching, which is supposed to be happening in a week and a half. So how do you set that ask up? Like, great, I know what the Zofo is. I got some ideas on how I can step into it. I've identified an ask I could make that I think is going to actually advance me. How do I actually do it? What words do I say? I'm not going to give you the words, but I am going to give you a framework that I've noticed in my practice, but also from auctioneering that really is helpful. And I use now and I will use in pitching my book. Because, and here's the source of it is really from the idea that to make an ask, alignment is everything. Like, Jane the Champion, like she needed to be in strong alignment with not just, the values that mattered to her, to the people she was asking, but also like, are they ready for it? Like, are they even ready? So alignment is everything. And here's how you leverage the alignment that you notice. It's a framework, sort of a storytelling framework that I use called I see you, you see me, let's move together. I see you, you see me, let's move together. And here's how it plays out. I see you. This is me standing on stage actually for Dress for Success last year. Amazing audience. And my job often is to help the room before I start making asks, understand that I see them. And that the organization that their support sees them. We see your values. You're here tonight because you value empowering, the next generation of women and pulling them out of a subsistence situation and putting them back to work so that they can earn and plow their earnings back into their families and communities, which the UN has found women plow 90% of their earnings back into their communities and families. And that is something you understand and value, and you're here to recognize. We see the work that you've done. You've been a valued member of this community over the last couple of years. For those of you who are new, you're doing the work by showing up right now. And your impact that you're going to have is you're going to lift women out of poverty. You're going to put women back to work. You're going to facilitate role models for women and girls across the Bay Area. So I'm acknowledging what they value, what their work is, and the impact they're having by acting on those values. When I go to pitch, I'll say, hey, literary agent, I see what you value. I see what you've already published. I've read your profiles and listened to your YouTube talks, and I see all the work that you've done, that you are also interested in publishing new women authors that actually have an impact in women's issues, etc. And that I've seen you elevate women, women's good work into a visibility that can have greater impact. Now let me share with you so you can see me. Here are my values. Here's my work. And here's my mission. And I'm sharing this as a way to uncover where the alignments between what I see in you, dear audience, and what I am doing, so that we can see how we're not that far apart. And more importantly, how what I'm doing and the ask I'm about to make is a way for us to move together both toward what matters to both of us. So let's move together. And my ask is to accept my manuscript to whatever the ask is. I see you, you see me. Let's move together. And a way to do that is with my ask. Now, you're not going to you might not say the words let's move together, but the idea is, I see you. I know what you're up to. I know what's important to you. Here's what I'm up to, and here's what's important to me. Here's where they intersect. So I'm asking for a raise. I'm asking for sponsorship. I'm coming to you as a client. I'm coming to you as a potential audience. I'm coming to you as a sponsor. I'm coming to you as etc. So because here's the idea, because truly inside of every ask is an offer. An offer for somebody to live out their values through your ask, an offer for them to say yes to you because it's a way for them to action what matters to them. In an investor case, it could be return on investment. It could be empowering and elevating the kind of impact you're having. It could be about spreading their own influence. It could be about just feeling like a freaking hero. But inside every ask is an offer. You might or you might not need to name that, but just know that that is present whether you know it or not. So I just want to wrap up by saying, using this quote from Brene Brown, which is only when we really are brave enough to explore the darkness. And to me, the darkness is, putting ourselves, making requests of the world where we don't know what kind of answer we're going to get. We're kind of in the dark there. Will we discover the infinite power of our light? I can give you not hundreds, but I can give you a lot of examples of where this has played out in my career and also in the careers of the women that come across this content. So you will be too much for some people. Those might not be your people. So what I'd like to do now is actually open this up to Q&A. We don't have that many folks in the room, so I'm going to put this into, yes, and also the email that you can use to get a hold of me. Well, two things. You can pick up your phone right now, and you can text the word impact to 66866, and you'll be on my mailing list. I don't send a lot of emails like monthly. I'm probably going to be launching a podcast very soon. You'll have access also. Thank you, Amy and Nancy, for putting my contact there. You'll also have an opportunity to join one of my open strategy sessions, which are it's like 90 minutes every month where women can come and we'll workshop somebody's ask in the room as a way for other women who are watching to learn. Or if you want to actually put your hand in the air and say, I'd like to get coached, you can do that. And you'll find that on my website if you go to diabondi.com/join. Amy and Nancy, if you can put that in there, diabondi.com/join, that would be fantastic. Folks can bookmark that. If you're on my mailing list, every time there's a new one coming up, you'll get a notification for that. So that's cool. So I'd like to just put you right now into gallery view so I can see all of you. And I'd like to take any questions you have in the time that we have remaining. And you're going to do that by raising your hand. And Amy and Nancy can actually, when you raise your hand using the hand raising function, Amy and Nancy can see who raised their hand first and call on you. You can unmute yourself and ask a question. So happy to be with you. Amy and Nancy, is that cool? You can unmute yourself. Is that whoever of you is going to moderate that?
Yes, we can do that.
Great. So who's got a question for me? Don't be scared. I know I'm intense, but I love you.
Okay.
I'll take a comment.
Has a question.
Great. Go ahead and unmute yourself. Tell me your name. Oh, Malini.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Hi.
Lower her hand, please, so that we know that she's been taken care of. Thank you. Hi, Malini. Nice to see you.
Yeah, thank you. And this was something really awesome. I mean, asking has always been a problem with me. I'm trying to sell my old businesses because I've been now pushed into a completely new path in life. And how do you do valuate? Because the men always do the valuation, and it's difficult. So because they don't see the value that you see, because businesses are, that's how male run and women run businesses are.
So two things I'm going to offer you. these are just ideas. Okay. One is that yes, sometimes they don't see the same value you do. Sometimes they see more. So what I would challenge you to do, and this is sort of a big ask maybe of your community, is to put together your pitch or your portfolio of things you're trying to sell, and to go to the 5 most influential men that you will not be actually selling your businesses to, and get their feedback and help them, ask them for their ideas of where to value it. Like, take a poll and find out and see what the gap is. And these have to be not the men that you'll be negotiating with. They're men who like get you, you know?
Okay. But the problem is that there's always this gap between the cost of something and the value of something.
Totally.
And men tend to look at the cost of what you're asking in terms of ROI and stuff like that.
Yep.
Whereas because I'm working, my businesses are in environment and waste management, where the value is far, far greater than the cost of what I'm asking. So how do you bring that together?
I would imagine that's going to be a story. 2 things. So I would poll men. Like, I would find out from a focus group about like where the gaps in your story are also. Like, that focus group could help you understand, what their big concerns are and where they're like not seeing value that they could. And then you can adjust your story based on the feedback that you get. Secondly, I would want to find out, like, I think that's a storytelling challenge is what you have. It's third. So I would run a focus group to get feedback on cost, price, and on where the value misalignment is, and where it's not showing up in your story. And then third, you're going to have to do a really good job of making sure you only are pitching to people who already are primed to see value. And I can't imagine that all men don't see value in its impact. Like, I mean, I just finished a 3-week class for entrepreneurs with a private university in Spain. And, 2/3 of the room were men, and many of their initiatives were environmental initiatives, and who were speaking in terms of, they were young. They're not people you're going to sell to. They're people you would employ. But just saying that while I understand that's your experience, there's your work is going to weed out all of the men who are going to take your time and make you fight for it in a way that is unnecessary.
Okay.
Thank
Great.
you. Anybody else have a question? Yeah. Because really, you're like, are you in or are you out? Like, if you don't see value in this, I'm not even going to sit down and talk to you. I don't need to fight with you. Next, go around, because you are too much for some people. Those are not your people. I sat in on a webinar not long ago on this accelerator that I'm in, and the woman said, if I have to explain this to you, I'm going to charge you double.
Fabulous. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else have a question? We have just a few minutes here. 2 more minutes. Yes. Amy and Nancy, do we have somebody else before Lisa unmutes herself, or we were using the hand raising tool? Sorry, Lisa. I just want to make sure it's fair. Okay, Lisa, go ahead.
Awesome. Sorry, you got me going with that feedback. Speaking to knowing your reserve, I'm currently launching, and so I've identified my passion. I've identified the folks that I want to talk to, but because I'm launching, what do I do when when my asks entail not only capital, but it's kind of, I'm looking for word of mouthers, capital, investors, clients. How do we frame it to where you lead with that with confidence, but then, you plan for at least having those?
Okay. Here's how I heard that. Tell me if I'm wrong. We're launching, and we have all kinds of shit we need to ask for. We need investment. We need advisors. We need blah, 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 blah. Okay. So you can't ask everyone for everything. So I would say you need, if this is the question you're asking, is what you're asking me, how do I make sure that every ask doesn't degenerate into something that is just my reserve?
I'm currently giving a pitch to like my besties, right? So I've gathered like the 50 women that I love so much, and they're ready to offer help. And so we're meeting on the 24th, and so they're ready for the ask. But these women are invested in women of color in business, so they're coming to it just because of who I am launching. So
yeah, because they love you. They're like, yes.
we're in. So now I'm like, okay, do I lead with, I need visionaries because I want to maximize my influence, or do I lead with, I need capital so I can sustain? I'm trying to figure out.
That's a business decision. That is a business decision. Okay, so I can't answer that right now looking inside of your. So there's a pretty good chance. So I'm going to go back to the question. What's your goal right now? And I'm not talking about like your huge impact goal. I mean, like the next big milestone you need to reach. And then what is the big move you need to make? And it's probably both. It's probably capital and it's the other. Thank you, everyone. I know we're at time. And so I would recommend that you come to one of my strategy sessions and we can talk through this. The next one I'm hosting is on the 4th. So go to diabondi.com/join. It's super affordable and we can tease this out a little bit more. The question inside your question is not what do I ask for? It's who do I ask for what and what the hierarchy is of it. Because it's going to be a both and, but you can't both and everybody. You got to think about who you're really talking to.
I see. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, everybody. You are all amazing. Thank you so much. Please send me a note at hello@diabondi.com if you want to learn more about this. I hope you're on my mailing list. And please join me in one of my upcoming Ask Strategy sessions. I had such a blast with you. Thank you for letting me rant, because I got to rant. And I hope you got something today that is going to make a difference to the asks that you'll make going forward.